Hello again. I wanted to walk you through another quick tutorial on how to do internal citations in MLA format. So I wanted to put in a couple examples to help you better do your Roman project. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So the one that I'm starting off with is probably the most traditional. I want to make it clear that this is a quote that I made up as well as the last name of the author and the page number. But if I took notes, for instance, and my notes were on Roman architecture, I would say the fact Roman architecture was influential to history with the development of the Pantheon and roads. There's my fact. Now, in order to give credit to the source that I got this information from, because remember, this is not your thoughts. This is somebody else's words, and you need to give credit to those words. If you do not, it is considered plagiarism. So the in-text citation is so important because you've already done the easy bit. You've built the bibliography. Now I need you to build the bridge that connects me with what facts came from each of the different sources. So think of it this way. If you don't do the in-text citation, you haven't built a bridge, and therefore I'm not able to walk across to figure out what facts came from what. So, just a few examples. If you use an in print book or an ebook and it has an author as well as a page number, you would simply put the fact. If it's a direct quote, you need to put the quotation marks. If it is not, then you can take the quotation marks out, but it still needs a citation because you're paraphrasing. And in parentheses, you're going to notice it says Smith, which would be the author's last name, and the page number, 72, with a period at the end. Make sure there's no comma in the middle there, as MLA rules stated on Owl Purdue's website. All right. Another way that you can actually cite is with a direct quote. You can actually put the author in the introduction of your sentence. So, for instance, you can say Robert Smith stated that, and then you'll notice I gave my quote again. And then at the end, all I have is the page number. So in this case, I've given credit to the author by embedding it right up here before I give the actual quote. And then that way, all I need in the parentheses in that case is the page number. This is true for both in print books as well as ebooks. Ebooks will have page numbers when you use them. It's usually in the upper right hand corner, so be mindful of that. Now, what if you come across a book that has no author? And this sometimes happens when you use the ebooks. You would type in your paraphrased or direct quote. Remember, you put quotation in if it's direct. You would put Roman architecture was influential to history with the development of the Roman Pantheon and roads. Now, in this case, because my book did not have an author, I would put the article title or the book title, if you will. In this case, if it's an ebook, it would actually be the article title for the specific chapter, or it would be the book title for whatever source you happen to be looking at. So this case, I put Roman Architecture 72. You're going to notice that I use quotation marks and I do not italicize the title. Be mindful of that. Now, what happens if you have the same last name of people that wrote the same book? How do you cite that? And this is talking about multiple authors as well. You would put the article fact, and you would give each person, you'd have to put their first initial if both of them had the last name Smith, because it shows me that there are two people that wrote this book, and they are J. Smith and Y. Smith. Now, as a little note to myself, if you were to put a fact that had multiple authors, um, you would put your fact, you would put the citation, and you need to list all of the appropriate authors. So you would say Smith, Douglas, James, and Frank. And then you would put 72, parentheses, and a period. So this is a book with multiple authors. You need to make sure you give credit for all the authors. There's another funky rule. If you find a book that's been edited and each chapter has a different author, in your internal citation, you would only put the author of the chapter. Your bibliography citation in EasyBib would show that it was a book that was being edited. Okay? Now, if you're citing multiple books in your source and many of them have the same author, when you do your facts, your citation would not actually have the author's last name. You would have the book titles instead. And what that shows me is that these books have the same author, and you're telling me which book it came from. So when I look at your bibliography, it makes sense to me. So it would say Roman Architecture 72, and then if I had my second fact, I should have the Roman Pantheon was majestic. I would put Roman Pantheon 7. And what this is telling me as the person's noting it is that you have the same author, but you've shown me which book each of the facts comes from. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is how to cite if it is a website. Now, this one's a little tricky because there's not an exact rule, but I put Owl Purdue's rules, who we use as our go to. It says include in the text the first item that appears in the works cited entry. So when you're in EasyBib, whatever appears first in that citation is what will go after your fact. So if it's the author, you would put Smith. If it's the article title, you would put the article title in quotation marks, Roman architecture. If it's the name of the website, the shortened version, you would do CNN.com, for instance, or whatever. In this case, it could also be maybe it's the title of a film. If it's the title of a film, you would do the same thing. You would put quotation marks, and then I put how to build a pantheon as my example. So this one's a little tricky to have an exact phrase for, but these are the four options of what you would do as your citation. I cannot stress enough, if you forget your in-text citation, you are not giving credit to your sources, and you will not get credit for what the work that you're doing. So please don't forget this really small step. Now, some of you have asked, what if I have multiple facts from the same source? For the case of research, if it's bulleted notes, you can put it at the end of the very last of the fact list. But if your facts are coming from different sources and each line is different, yes, you have to put in-text citations after each one. So please let me know if you have any questions. I didn't talk about all the citing options, but I talked about the ones that I believe are most relevant for this project. So if you come across any that are not covered in this tutorial, please let me know and you and I can have a private conversation. All right, once again, good luck on your project.